My name is Becky, and I have been asked by several of you now if I would be willing to put together a video that might help answer some of the questions that you have all had about how I did this Hello, My Name Is page on the inside cover of my Bible. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I hope you will bear with me. This is the first video that I've ever done, so I'm very new to this, and I'm going to try not to ramble on too much and make it too long. But several of you have asked about the Bible that I'm using, and so this is the single column journaling Bible. It's an ESV from Crossway, and I just got this for Christmas. I haven't been doing this long. But I just love this Bible. I love the cover, how flexible it is, and it's just been really fun to get into. And before I get started, let me just say how encouraged and how blessed I have been by being a part of this Facebook group. So thank you all for being a part of it. Thank you for your encouragement and for just the inspiration that you post every day. It's just, it's incredible to be a part of this group. I am so excited. Just about the things that I see happening every day on the Facebook group. So thank you so much for that. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about how I did this. A lot of you have had questions about how, what products I used to make this page and how I was able to do the overlapping techniques and all that. So I'm just going to jump right into that. This whole page is almost all stamping with acrylic stamps. There is very little that I did by hand on here, and I will show you what I did by hand, but honestly it's not much. It's almost all acrylic stamps. So if you are not familiar with acrylic stamps, let me show you. Obviously the main stamp that I used on this page was the Hello, My Name Is tag. And that stamp is right here. This is a stamp set from Close to My Heart, and it's called All the Details. You can see it right there. These are not rubber, these are acrylic, clear acrylic stamps. So the way they come is in this thin little envelope like this. And if you are not familiar with these, they're super easy. When they come like this, the whole stamp set comes on this carrier sheet. And when you get your stamps, you just open them up, and the clear acrylic peels right off the carrier sheet and right onto a block, a clear block. Okay, which is great because you can look through it and you can see exactly what you're stamping, which makes it so easy to do things like this where you kind of need a little bit of precision to know exactly where you're going. This is super easy because everything's clear. You can see right through it to see exactly what you're doing. So I love these. Okay, so here's my main stamp. When I started on this page, I knew that the spot up here where it says this Bible belongs to, and it already has the lines, I knew that I didn't want to stamp over those. I wanted to kind of accent it somehow, but I wanted that to still show through, and I wanted that to be where my name was written. So you'll see, I mean, if you look at the whole, you know, the page as a whole, you can see almost every label is overlapped at some point, except for this one. This one is the one that looks like it's right there on top. So what I did when I started this page, because I knew that I wanted this one to be kind of front and center, I guess you could say. So I took my inks, and I'll show you real quick what I ended up doing. I didn't know this when I started, it just kind of happened this way, but I ended up using 6 different colors of ink. So there's my 6 colors that I used, that I just found colors that I already had that I thought looked good together and ended up using them. So so what I did to start off was took my ink, took my stamp, and you kind of, you know, pat, pat, pat. I'm not doing it. right now since it's already stamped. But pat, pat, pat the stamp. And then I just stamped, lined it up, you know, with the lines in the middle of it and stuff, and stamped that front and center. Okay. So I had that purple label right there. Then I knew that I wanted to build off around that and have these other labels coming out that would look overlapped like this. So what I did to do this overlapping technique, and it's actually a really, really easy technique once you see it and you've learned it. It's really fun technique to do with all kinds of stamps. It looks great with flowers and lots of other things. But all you do is, I had a scrap piece of paper. So here's my scrap paper. I took the same stamp that I had just used, stamped it several times on the scrap paper. When I was working on this page, I think I had 3. Okay, so that's what I've done here. Stamped it 3 times on the scrap paper, and then I just cut those out. Okay, now for the sake of time, I've already got one cut out. That's all I'm going to do right now. But when I was working on the page, I had 3 of them. Okay, and what that does is that I have now created a mask. That's what I'm calling this. Okay, so I've created a mask, and so all I do now is when I want something overlapped, so let's say this blue one was the next one that I did. Okay, I would take my mask, and I used a tiny bit of temporary adhesive on the back, and I would just temporarily adhere this scrap piece over the one that I had already stamped. Okay, so then when I ink up my blue and I stamp off to the side of it, you'll see everything would show up blue except for where it is stamping on the scrap paper right here. So when I take the when I take the mask off, you're still going to see just the purple with the blue underneath. Okay? It's that simple, really. It is super easy. So you're just masking off whatever you want to be on the top of the layer. Okay, so whatever is overlapped underneath, that's the part you're stamping again, and you're masking off. Whatever you're masking off will be what looks like it's on the top. So really that's all I did with the rest of the page here, is I just had the mask, and so you'll see I masked this main one right here, and I did like the blue, the green, the orange, the yellow, and the red, so it looks like I did about 4 or 5 around this mask. And then there were other places, once I got going, there were other places that sometimes I needed more than one mask. Like you can see right here, when I stamped this red one, I would have had a mask right here, and I would have had a mask over this yellow one. Okay, so that's why, I said I had 3 when I was working on the page. I had 3 masks that I had cut out. I think that was the most I ever needed, was 3 at a time, just to cover up what I had already stamped. And then I just worked my way around the page, came up with the colors that I wanted, worked my way around the page, just stamping those tags out in all the different colors. So that was, pretty simple. It only took me a couple minutes just to go through and, once I had my masks, it just took a couple minutes to go through and stamp all those out. Now, I did have some issues stamping over the crease while I was doing this, and so I'm going to show you a really cool trick. I think it's a really cool trick that I learned years ago with the stamps. And what that is that I had a lot of places, you can see down here it turned out fine where I was stamping over the crease. Up here at the top, which I had done first, I really had some issues with trying to get over that crease. And there were a lot of places, especially right around the crease where the ink didn't get laid all the way on the paper. Like the stamp really didn't get a good coverage. It was kind of spotty, and there were places where it wasn't all yellow. And I wanted it to be nice and bright. I wanted the colors to pop out. I wanted it to be nice and bright and look like it had really good coverage. All I did with that, once I had stamped all these tags, I went back through with this handy little tool, which is called a blending pen. And a blending pen is just a clear pen that basically what it does is it picks up any color of ink and kind of turns it into a marker. Okay, so it picks up ink and lays it down on whatever surface you happen to be working on. And so what I did with this is I took the ink pads that I had been working with, okay, and I took the ink pad and kind of pushed down on the top of it like this. And what that does is that when you then open the ink pad, you've got like a puddle of ink right here in the top of the lid, and you can use the blending pen to just pick up some of that ink and put it down right where you would want it. Okay, and because this is the exact same color of ink that I used to stamp this, all it does is just act like a marker of that exact color. So it was really easy for me to go back in after I had stamped all these out. It was easy to go back in with this blending pen and just fix all of those places where I maybe didn't have good coverage on a stamp, especially around the creases. Okay, and even with the words here, this blending pen is two-sided, so it's got that tip, and it's also got a really fine tip on the other end. So even right here around these words, I was still able to make them look like they had all stamped perfectly, even though they didn't when I was doing it. Okay, so that's a little trick for you there. All right, so after I had done that, I stamped all the tags on here in all the different colors. I went through and fixed them with my blending pen. Then I had all these blank tags. So obviously the next thing that I wanted to do was just fill them all in. For those of you who have questions about the list of words that I used and stuff, hopefully you've seen my other post. I did put all of those on the Facebook page as a separate post, so hopefully you've seen that. But what I did is, again, stamping. I have a whole bunch of these alphabet stamps that I just went through, and I used different fonts to stamp all the different words that I wanted. Again, super easy. The most time-consuming part of this was just going through my fonts and picking which fonts I wanted to use with which words, because obviously I wanted to make sure that the word that I was going to stamp would fit within the tag, which with whatever font I was using. So that was really what took the longest, was just figuring out which fonts I wanted to use. But once I did that, I have another size block, and I would just take the words and spell out with whatever font I was using, spell out the word I wanted, and just stamp it down. I did all of those. I did all of the words in black, so that was, pretty easy to do. So yeah, and the words I didn't really have any problem with. So once I had the words all done, then the only handwriting that I did on this page is I went and I hand wrote my name, and I hand wrote each of the references for the verses. So yeah, that is pretty much all the stamping that I did on this page, and it wasn't wasn't that hard for me, so I hope that you have the same kind of success with it. I will add, the only other thing I did on here, I'm just noticing, I did, after I had this all stamped, there were places where, here between the labels, where the white was still showing through, and I found that I wanted that to be a different color than the white that was still in the tags. So what I did with that is I have this set of watercolor color pencils, also from Close to My Heart, and all I did is just take my gray colored pencil and just color in here between the labels. So it just kind of added another shadowing, I guess you could say. So I colored in those places that I wanted underneath the labels, and then took the same blending pen that I used before. Also works really well with the colored pencils, being able to blend the colored pencils. And so I did that gray and then just went over it with the blending pen to just make it look a little more watercolory. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I did on here, but I really think that's about it. So again, I hope that answers whatever questions you guys had. I hope that makes it easier to see this masking technique that I used, and yeah, I hope that you have the same success with this page that I have. I have loved seeing some of the other, a lot of you have posted some other words and some other names that you have found on your own, and you've sent me verses and things that you have found that I didn't have on here. I am loving that. So keep it up, keep searching the scriptures, and find more of these names that God calls us, and that things that we are in Christ. I am excited that so many of you have identified with this just like I did, and I hope that it is something that means as much to you as it has to me. So so thank you for bearing with me. Have a great day, and I will be praying for all of you and be watching for your inspiration on the Facebook page. Bye.